City of Stevens Point Special Common Council meeting, recorded June 28, 2022.
I have 11:30. We will call the Special Common Council meeting of the City of Stevens Point to order. I didn't even bring an agenda. How's that? First thing we need, of course, is a roll call.
Christensen.
Here.
Shore.
Here.
Keemer.
Here.
Zarazua.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Kneebone.
Here.
Shuda.
Here.
Dalton.
Here.
Fischler and Morrow are excused.
Okay, but we do have a quorum, so we will consider the items before us. The one and only item is consideration of an agreement with the Village of Park Ridge to provide fire protection and related services as it relates to the financial terms of the contract. The Police and Fire Commission will be meeting at 2 o'clock to determine all of the operational pieces of that, but we are here only for the financial piece. And I know that this has been a quick process. We've been working with the Village of Park Ridge to try and provide fire service as of July 1st. They are in a bit of a pickle with very few staff members, if any, remaining. As you know, their fire chief had turned in his last day is the 30th of June. With us here in the room is Village President Steve Menzel from the Village of Park Ridge, Fire Chief J.B. Moody, our City Attorney, and of course all of the alderpersons present. So, City Attorney Beveridge, I will turn it over to you to kind of give an overview of the contract, keeping in mind, of course, that the council is only here to consider the financial aspects of that.
Sure, and although it is sort of that limited term review, I'll just kind of go generally through the whole scenario here. Obviously, I think most of you understand the underlying situation that led to this. So this is for essentially just half of the year, as you can see, based on the initial term there. There is the ability to extend it. The village would need to provide notice in writing of their intent to discuss that by the beginning of November. So the monetary terms, just for anybody who's listening at home doesn't have a copy of this, it's $47,974.85 to be made in 2 payments, one on July 1st, one on October 1st. And JB can speak to the origin of that particular number. And this is to provide not just showing up with trucks to put out fires, but also to do fire inspections and fire prevention work of that type. And then, of course, the equipment, EMS staff that are necessary for firefighting operations should they be needed. There are provisions in here such as the Stevens Point Fire Department maintains control and management of the staffing and the direction of the services. If you'll look at the sort of the middle of page 3, at the last part of paragraph 6, you'll see a reference to a couple statutes there, 101.573, 101.575. Those are state statutes that relate to what are called, JB refers to it as the 2% dues, which is a certain amount of funding that comes into fire departments, into municipalities for payment of fire department related expenses. So essentially we have some provisions in here that talk about the village's eligibility to receive such funds from the state, and us being able to discuss how those funds could be transferred to the city. There were some discussions about the village having their funds of those type for this calendar year already being allocated in their budget in ways that they wouldn't be able to change at this point. The contemplation would be that if this agreement is extended to cover the period after the end of this year, that there'd be a change to the subsequent agreement such that those funds would come to the city. The limitation of liability and indemnity provisions primarily are just saying we're not waiving any of our statutory immunity or anything like that, but also the paragraph 7 there about infrastructure damage. We're just thinking that our fire apparatus with a full load of water is pretty darn heavy, and the roadways in a lot of places in the village. We're just thinking, you know, we want to make sure that we're covered in terms of any sort of damage to those roadways from the weight of that equipment, but also any potential damage to infrastructure that's underlying them. You know, there's not water or sewer infrastructure out there, but there is most likely some gas, electrical, et cetera, that could be located in the right-of-way in various places. So just some coverage for that. And then just sort of some of your standard provisions you see in almost any contract, default provisions, amendment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's fairly straightforward. This was put together with some work by JB, some work by myself, and also Attorney Brian Vermeller on behalf of the village, and wasn't subject to a whole lot of debate or gnashing of teeth. It came together pretty quickly. So.
Thank you, City Attorney. I am now going to ask Chief Moody to come up and talk about the key points and the more specifically, you know, targeting the cost and how we came up with the cost and the hybrid. It's the intention that this payment go into the operational budget of the Stevens Point Fire Department because they're providing the service. They're the ones that are going to have the direct expenses rather than the general fund. The intention would be that that payment goes into the operational budget of the Stevens Point Fire Department. Chief?
So I can kind of take you through the step-by-step process or boots on the ground, what it's going to look like in this contract. As City Attorney Beveridge had discussed, this is going to be a short-term contract starting midnight July 1st and working through December 31st of this year. With that, we are going to provide more than just fire services to the village of Park Ridge. This is going to be able to provide fire suppression. So if there are fire alarms within the community of Village of Park Ridge, the Stevens Point Fire Department will be responding. If there are working fires, we will be taking care of putting those fires out with our MABUS agreements that we have with other fire department agencies around the Division 110 Portage County group. We will also be providing with that an AHJ and an authority having jurisdiction. What that does is then that individual is responsible for any type of fire in said village, would be required to be able to do a fire investigation, have a determination, and come up with an origin and cause report. Also in that area, we would be doing fire prevention and risk reduction management, including fire inspections of all the commercial buildings in the area or any other buildings that need to be inspected in the area or village. Also, we will be providing our engine assists, which basically through the county contract for EMS provisions, when our ambulances respond into the Village of Park Ridge through the county contract, we also are sending with either an engine or a ladder truck on those critical paramedic calls to assist them as well. And then there's a larger umbrella dealing with technical rescue or other things that fire suppression services or technical rescue would need. That would be included in this contract as well. When it comes to the dollars and cents and how we came up with these numbers, we looked at a per capita formula, we looked at an equalized value formula, and we looked at a blended formula. Working with the comptroller's office, what we tried to get was something comparable to what currently the citizens at Stevens Point are paying for the fire services here in the city. When we did that, the comptroller informed us that the blended formula was as close as they could get to what the current city of Stevens Point taxpayers are paying for the services. That's what we felt the village residents should be paying then as well. So we used the blended formula. And then on top of that, I was able to work with their Chief Leopard, who is currently still the Village of Park Ridge chief until Thursday on the 30th. And he informed me that they had 32 inspectable buildings in the village at this time, with 4 re-inspects already this year. With that, I was able to reach out to other departments in the local area that actually charge for those inspection services. I took an average of the 5 that were able to give me what those costs were, and we added that to the total as well. And that came up to $1,120 for that service for the rest of this year. Then after having those 2 dollar amounts, I was obviously, we all know the cost of doing business is going up, and I've talked at the Common Council before and at the PFC at great length explaining that the cost of business over the last 16 months operationally has gone up 33%. Talking and reaching out to some of the vendors and trying to project where that is going to go now after July 1st through the end of the year. They informed me we were looking at somewhere between 8 and 15% in increases yet this year to do the cost of business. So with that, we went with a 10% on top of that, just to be able to hopefully offset the cost of doing business and the increases that the Stevens Point Fire Department is going to see before the end of this year. So that's actually where that number came up, or where we came up with that number. Also in there, I know there were discussions on other things, but as of right now, again, Logan was talking about the 2% dues. 2% dues, what that is through DSPS, and there are certain requirements and documentation that's needed in order to get those 2% dues. Every 5 years, a department will go through an audit. Next year, the Stevens Point Fire Department will be up for an audit again, and basically it wants to make sure that we have an actual AHJ. Someone is actually responsible for those things and qualified to be able to do those things through SPS 330. Along with that, it makes sure that training is up to date, apparatuses are up to date, equipment's up to date, and they go through this. And with that, at the end, they give us cost sharing revenue, or that 2% dues back. And with that, we're able to purchase other items. Also, it allows our department members to be able to go to school for free through the Wisconsin State certification courses.
Chief, a couple of questions, because I know we talked about them in our talks, but for the sake and benefit of everyone here, with your current staffing, based on the average number of calls and services that we would need to provide to Park Ridge, are you comfortable with your current staffing levels being able to handle that for this 6-month period?
I am.
Secondly, with the cost that the comptroller, treasurer, and the group came up with, are you comfortable with the compensation for providing such services?
I am.
Thank you. President Menzel, I will allow you to take the lectern and explain whatever you think this group needs to know and how your village board meeting went last night, your concerns and discussion there.
First of all, I want to thank Mayor and Chief and also your city attorney for the quick work on this. I know it ideally would have been better to address this earlier. I don't know if any of us knew that we needed to address it earlier, but so we're working the best we can. But so we had a meeting last night with our village board, and our board voted unanimously to accept this agreement. It's a significant step up for us as far as cost and service, and we recognize that. We are, for the year and a half I've been on the board, we've been adamant about moving forward to determine our long-term goals for providing fire protection for the village. And so we'll be doing that in the next couple months. I think for practical reasons, we decided to go with the 6-month contract because we're just to give us enough time to figure out which direction we're going to go. So the directions we can go is either maintaining our current fire department but upgrading it to where it needs to be, or contracting the service, so. I don't know if, I think that covers pretty much
Covers
everything.
most of it. Were there any concerns on your village board's end in regards to the contract that's before us?
No, I mean, there was minor things on the agreement, but I think Andrew, and our attorney Brian
Yeah,
Formella
the one we
worked
have
that out.
before us has those 2 minor edits in it. Went from midnight to 12:01 to clarify it, and there was something else that was almost typographical in nature, so.
Yeah, so again, compliments to Andrew and also to Brian for putting that together, so.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's any.
We'll get to the questions here in a minute.
Okay, great.
And I wanted everybody to get a kind of an overview, because even though we've been working on it for a while internally, the alderpersons really haven't seen the contract until right now. As I said, the Police and Fire Commission is going to be considering the operational end of it at 2 o'clock today. The village board, we didn't want to do anything until the village board decided whether or not that's what they wanted to do. That's hence the special meeting. So if anyone was interested in providing a motion, I would ask that you include in that motion that the fees involved here be directly put into the fund of the operational budget of the Stevens Point Fire Department.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between the City of Stevens Point Fire Department, EMS, and the City of Stevens Point and the Village of Park Ridge with the fees paid to the Stevens Point Fire Department operational budget.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Seconded by Shuda. Now, discussion, because I'm sure there's lots of questions, but keep in mind that we don't want to speculate on what might happen after December 31st, and we're really only dealing with the financial portion. Alder Shore.
Thank you, Mayor. So just would like to know how the blended formula works. I mean, is it some combination of assessed value,
Yes.
residents, buildings?
So the 2 formulas, one was based on per capita, a per person charge. Let's say hypothetically our fire department costs $100 a year to run, there's 100 people in the city, $1 per person. The equalized value formula uses the equalized value of the entire village, in this case the city, to calculate how much per dollar we pay for fire
So
service.
compared how the two
Merging,
work out.
yeah, merging the two is basically like a 50-50 blend, taking pieces of the population and pieces of the assets. Because you could have a community of 20, but $50 million in value. There's cities in the southwest or southeast part of the state that are just that. Very few people live there, but the value is tremendous. So that's why the blended option was used. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Anything online? Oh, I'm sorry. Alderperson Christensen.
Not a question, but just a comment. I guess, and I understand the time frame we were operating under. I do know that from myself, I know that time is of the essence. I would have probably preferred if this meeting would have taken place tomorrow, just so I could have had some chance. It does create some discomfort for me to have to make a decision on something the very first time I see it. So I understand these are unusual circumstances, but even with that into consideration, even just that 24-hour period probably would have been amenable to me. That being said, I'm still think I think I compliment the people on the job really well done on putting it together. It's considering the time constraints you were under to be able to come up with something of this quality, and I think something that's fair to both sides. I think it's admirable. So
I agree with you 100% there.
So that's my only comment.
I do want to point out too that Chief Moody and City Attorney Beveridge really bore the weight of all of this. When I talked with Chief Moody, so I'm like, okay, sure, easy peasy, 6 months, we can do this and that. And every time he peeled something back, there was something else. So we got another hurdle here. We got to do this legally. And when it came to legally, City Attorney Beveridge is the one that had to make sure every dot and T and statute was outlined, and that he protected the city as well as providing what the city or Village of Park Ridge needed. So both of them on our team get a lot of credit.
And in that short term, to be able to think of all the potential complications that could come up and be able to make accommodations for that, that's pretty impressive. So well done.
If there's anybody else. So before we let you talk again, anyone else with questions or comments online?
Mayor, I have a
Alder
quick
Nebo.
question.
Yep.
This might not be the right meeting, so if it's not, you can just say we can answer it later. I just want to make sure, Chief Moody, that this gives you and your team the kind of control that you're going to need to handle whatever happens in the next 6 months.
He's approaching the lectern. John's smiling because I called it a lectern.
Yes, it will give us the ability to be able to operate and function appropriately through the Stevens Point Fire Department. Within that agreement, it still states that ultimately, operationally, I will answer to the Police and Fire Commission and financially answer to the Common Council. And there is no I will report to the Village of Park Ridge. I believe it's going to be once a month. Either myself or my designee will be at the board meetings to be able to provide a written report and any communications or any questions they may have. But ultimately, operationally for the fire department, everything will proceed as normal. So I am comfortable with how things are proceeding.
Thank you.
Excellent job putting this all together, everybody that's been involved in it.
Thank you.
Thank you. President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and everybody involved in this. I appreciate it. The two items that I was going to be asking about actually have been addressed. One of them, of course, is having the money go directly back into the fire department funds because, well, I have seen money come into general funds and then somehow never make it past that. So thanks for thinking of that. That was definitely one of my concerns. And the other concern, of course, was taken care of in the liability waivers on the roads. We all know that the roads in Park Ridge are really designed for lightweight traffic. And I was concerned that we would be paying for roads. So I appreciate those two items. Those were the only things, other than it would have been great to have it a little bit sooner, but I understand the challenge. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, anyone else online? And with that, then I'm going to move back to Alderperson Carlson.
I think Alder Christensen mentioned this a little bit, but it's about the time element. And Village President Menzel, I just want to emphasize to you, I don't want to see the city staff go through the crunch time again. So getting ducks in a row a lot sooner. I know it was a weird time this last time, but getting ducks in a row sooner so there isn't a panic to get things, to put the fire out, so to speak, would be a good thing. And I just want to throw that out there so it's logged somewhere in the back of your mind.
All right. Great. Thank you. And that's we've got a clause in here to
Yep.
so we would know by November 1st, giving us ample time. I do once again want to commend everybody involved. Police and Fire Commission President Moore was involved, President Menzel, the city attorney, Chief Moody, Chief Lepper in the Park Ridge Department, and everybody else who played a role in this. We really came together as a community to get something done to provide assistance that you need. With that, comments are done, and I will. We have a motion to approve the contract, stipulating that the fees for the service be inserted into the general fund of the Stevens Point Fire Department. If you are in favor of the motion, you will vote yes. If you are opposed, you will vote no, and the clerk will call the roll.
Christensen.
Yes.
Shore.
Aye.
Kiemer.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Dalton.
Aye.
And that is approved, and we are adjourned at 11:53. Thank you all.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.